What's up, everyone? Welcome to a special edition of That's So Mets. Maybe not the podcast, but the YouTube video because it is the trade deadline edition, and the Mets were active like we expected. They make a big splash going out and getting Javy Baez and an arm in Trevor Williams after acquiring Rich Hill a week ago. And it comes at a cost. They give up Pete Crow-Armstrong. I know it was Joe's seventh ranked prospect. I know he was still number 5 on the MLB pipeline, which seems a little dated at the time. So we're going to break down the trade, a big move for the Mets. But Joe, let's get you right in here. Instant thoughts when this hit your feed.
Yeah, I mean, I understood. It's a big price to pay. There's no question. Like, I like Pete Crow-Armstrong a lot. Like you said, I ranked him number 7. He obviously had the shoulder surgery earlier this year, so he's missing the whole season. And he's obviously just a guy that the Mets felt they were able to part with in order to get a potential impact player in Javier Baez. And then Trevor Williams would provide some starting pitching depth, which I know fans wanted a bigger starting pitcher than Trevor Williams, but Zach Scott had been pretty open that they were seeking depth because obviously Jacob deGrom's working his way back. Carlos Carrasco's pitching tonight. So to me, I think it's okay. It's not bad. I know fans are excited. I'm here in the Citi Field parking lot. Right before we went on, someone pulled into the parking attendant and was yelling at the lot, Javier Baez! So I think Mets fans are excited, and he's going to bring a hell of a lot of energy to this team over this, rest of the season. And, he's got his flaws. There's no question about it. But all in all, the Mets tried. They went. So you can't say that the Mets aren't trying to win. Will it meet everyone's expectations? No. I mean, but that's the way it goes. At the end of the day, everyone has different expectations of what they deem to be worthy, but they got a potential impact player. There's no question about it.
Yeah, you're never going to please everyone. And I think when you look at this deal, we'd heard pitching for the Mets. And then you look at what Max Scherzer and Trey Turner being in that deal has a big part of it as well, goes forward to the Dodgers. But more importantly, now rumors coming out. I know the New York Daily News had said just now, and I believe it was from Disha, that the asking price at one point was at least Dominic Smith and Ronnie Mauricio for Jose Barrios, which is, I remember when I had tweeted at you a while ago that I think that conversation would start at Ronnie Mauricio and Vientos. Throwing Dom into that equation instead of Vientos is a much bigger pay, and it said at least. So it goes to show you how astronomical, and rightfully so. Barrios is a young pitcher. They used the first-round pick on him in the past. He's under team control next year. So it goes to show you that the Mets were probably not going to be in the business and going out and getting an ace or a number 2 kind of player. They were never going to be in the market for Max Scherzer. That was going to be impossible. So instead, it looks like they go the quantity approach here. You get Trevor Williams. You already got Rich Hill. You have Carlos Carrasco coming back. Hopefully, he could stay healthy. Noah Syndergaard eventually, probably a month from now. And Joe is at Citi Field, as you see right now, seeing Carrasco tonight. But just keeping this, before we talk about Pete Crow-Armstrong for a little bit, keeping this focused on Baez right now, I think people are overlooking, I should say, the kind of glove that he has. And when Francisco Lindor is back, what the middle of this infield looks like right now. Don't you think so, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, Baez this year, he's been a plus defender. He has more errors than he's had in years past, but at shortstop, he's a Gold Glove caliber guy when everything's going right. He's going to play second base, of course, probably when Lindor returns, and you'll probably shift McNeil over to third. But up the middle, Baez and Lindor has a chance to be, elite. It's very, very exciting from a defensive side of the ball. And then obviously on the offensive side of the ball, you got the power. Comes with strikeouts, comes with a low average and not a ton of walks. But yeah, I mean, it's super exciting to see what that defense will look like in, 2 or 3 weeks whenever Lindor gets his way back.
Trevor Williams put in this deal, obviously not an elite arm, not really anything more than a number 5, but probably something they need right now. Do you think he comes in and slots into this rotation right away?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think maybe you could see him piggybacking a guy like Rich Hill or piggybacking someone like Cookie Carrasco, who's got, Rich Hill's not a length pitcher. He's a 4 to 5 inning guy. Carrasco's going to take at least a couple starts to build up to that 6 innings or so. Like tonight, I expect him to go 3-4 tops. And Trevor Williams kind of fits as, like you said, he's a number 5 kind of guy. I don't know if he'll go right in, But to me, this just solidifies that you won't have to see Jared Eichhoff ever again.
I think that'll make a lot of people happy right now. So, as you said on the SNY reaction, you got to give to get. And I think that, when I started to see what these trades were looking like early in the morning of the trade deadline day, I said, oh, it's going to cost something if you want to be a buyer out there because teams are giving up big pieces, big prospects. Pete Crow-Armstrong, basically season ending shoulder surgery. Only played 6 games this year, I believe, 6 brilliant games, but a first round pick in very recent year. Are you surprised they were willing to part with him here?
A little bit. So, I know the Cubs had been asking about him for a while, and the Mets were resistant. I think they were hoping that as we got closer, the price would come down. And when it didn't, I think they realized, look, if we want to go and make a run here, we got to give up someone. They really want Pete Crow-Armstrong. The Cubs have coveted him for a while. And I guess they just decided it was a worthwhile risk to take. To me, it's a little heavy, in my opinion, but I also am a bit of a prospect hugger, admittedly. And, I just don't want to give up much for rentals. But who knows? With Steve Cohen, maybe Javier Baez is not a rental. Maybe he's a guy that they look to pay for the long term and just pair him and Lindor up the middle for the next however many years.
Yeah, I think that's my follow-up conversation here. I look at this deal, if they got Chris Bryant, there's a lot of players that they were connected. Trevor Story, I thought both of those guys were almost locks as rentals if they acquired either of them. And by the way, I'm shocked the Rockies just sat on their hands and did nothing this trade deadline. Just awful business by them. But keeping this to the Mets, Javy Baez, who we heard for a while the Cubs might actually not deal because he might be a guy they want to keep long term. They do part ways with him. They do get a nice trade return from the Mets. There is risk here for the Cubs. He's going a place that he's been vocal he'd be happy to go to because Francisco Lindor, his very good friend, is here. The only place he's willing to play second base, an owner with a lot of money, a team that wants to win. I look at this deal, Joe, and I think when I saw the return was Pete Crow-Armstrong, which I'm okay with, but this is a guy we were excited about. It tells me that they are at least thinking Javy Baez might be part of this infield beyond this year.
Yeah, I think it's a consideration. When you give up a prospect of that caliber, I doubt they're looking at it as like, all right, we're going to have Baez for 2 months and then he's gone. Doesn't mean they're definitely going to sign him, but it's a perfect trial, right? You take the 2 months, see how he fits in the market, see how he performs, and then you can revisit in the offseason. And like you said, Steve Cohen has all the money in the world, basically. He could sign whoever he wants for however much he wants to. I think the Mets had a focus of staying under a luxury tax this year because I expect them to blow past it in the offseason. So it won't shock me if Baez is a Met for the long term, and you kind of get a trial run at a pretty, a good cost. But if you sign him for the long term, then you could live with the loss of Pete Crow-Armstrong, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I know final thoughts, you have to be happy that the trade deadline is over and Ronnie Mauricio, Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, and JT Ginn are all still wearing Mets orange and blue, correct?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that they kept the bulk of their system. I was afraid of Steve Cohen pressuring them into going all in and, dealing half of the top 10, getting a bunch of guys. But no, I'm pretty glad that they only parted with one prospect of note at this deadline season. And yeah, no, I think it's okay. Like I said, a slight overpay maybe, but that's the cost of doing business. I mean, Joey Bart went for Chris Bryant. It's just the way it goes. Sometimes you have to give to get, and that's really what it comes down to.
That's exactly it. Well, it's going to be fun, at a minimum, watching the Mets throughout this stretch run right now. We will be back next week with our normal podcast in the Apple Podcast feed. Joe will not be in the Citi Field parking lot, in the windy parking lot. He will be in his office with his microphone again. But we wanted to get this reaction up, as we always will with the YouTube channel. So thanks so much for the support, everyone, and we'll catch you during the midweek show.